Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far with OpTic Tech streaming their practice over the last few days. Their first real test came last night against Thieves and FaZe, arguably two of the very best respawn teams in the entire game. And the FaZe series, it's got to be said, could even be described as rather dominant. In the respawn modes, Scump was buzzing about the way that OpTic performed last night. Yes, it is of course only practice, but this is clearly a show of the potential that this OpTic team has with this new roster with Huke and Skyz in the lineup. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below because we've got lots to dive into today. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Just wanted to start here. The Jackal, basically the SMG in the game, has been nerfed, and well, you can see the data as follows. The gun is potentially going to feel the same, but there are some substantial changes here as you can tell. So even the additional adjustments, the headshot multi has been decreased in multiplayer, the slide to fire time has been improved, the dive to fire time has been improved, so you know, players will enjoy that part of it, but the recoil strength and deviation has been increased. So the gun will likely, you know, for Season 3, feel somewhat worse, and the range has also been decreased as well. Not drastically so, but enough to probably mean that in certain gunfights it's taking an extra bullet. Now the SMG has been great this year, I think there's no doubt about that. The AR is probably weaker than many of the ARs that we have seen in recent seasons, but what's this going to do to the meta? Is it going to change much? Probably not is my guess, but it does mean that the subs are going to be a little bit weaker. Maybe it comes at a good time for a guy like Kenny, for example, right? Because Kenny, we think, is joining the Minnesota Rocker. They play OpTic on Friday, but Kenny was struggling on the flex so far this year. Maybe if the subs are worse, there's a conversation to be had that he could be a bit better on that second AR role. Today is April Fool's Day, so I don't really know if this is like a United trolling around a little bit, but Burns did tweet this out yesterday. Of course, former top guy at United, former player back in the day as well on, I think, Curse, among other teams. It would be a shame if someone got the United account and launched a Challengers team tomorrow, but of course, you know, it is the 1st of April. So, I don't know, United, of course, legendary organisation in COD, won the World Championship back in 2019. Is Challengers ripe for that kind of investment? Maybe not necessarily. Would I love to see it? Absolutely yes, especially with all the Challengers drama that we'll talk about a little bit more later today as well, because Envoy has been back in the news, let's just say that. But let's talk about the scrims that went down yesterday, because we've seen OpTic play the likes of Boston, among others, over the last few days. You know, they played Ravens a couple of times, they played Miami, they played Boston, and did pretty well in these scrim sets. They played Toronto as well, and lost that one, but pretty marginally so. OpTic, they're trying to improve, they're trying to learn with a new team. Skyz is in, Huke is in. There is a general feeling from the players, I know that Kenny has said this many a time, that you know, you get a feeling for how good the team can be relatively early on. You might not necessarily show that in terms of pure performance and results, but the team in the first few days and weeks of practice, they will get a feeling of how, you know, what the ceiling of the team potentially is. Many players have mentioned that in the past. So these scrims were quite important in that sense because, look, it is practice, right? I don't want to dive into it in great detail to the extent of, oh my god, OpTic are winning the major. But when Scump's co-streaming it or watch partying the scrims to 25,000 live viewers, and when Scump's giving the reactions that he does, you know, if Scump's going to talk about it with some, like, you know, in a serious manner, then obviously we're going to do so here on the channel. But this was going to be quite telling because they'd brought in Skyz before the major. Now Huke is back in for Pred. We know that Shotzzy Huke duo, certainly online, is always going to be a serious force to be reckoned with. But it's not like FaZe and Thieves are slouches online. FaZe, notably, are like the best scrim team ever. That's what pros will tell you. They've played FaZe in scrims over the last few years. These guys don't lose scrims. Now it might be a different story. Nowadays we don't see the FaZe, you know, boys streaming their practice, right? Like we have the OpTic guys and many other players. I think it's good to see, like if I'm scrimming against OpTic and they're streaming their POVs, I'm turning my POV on too. I'm taking some of the viewers, I'm taking some of the, you know, some of the donations and the Twitch subscribers and some of the ad revenue. I know that I think Purge did that the other day when they played OpTic. It was like, well, I might as well turn on my stream as well. That'd be the way that I would do it. But a big day of scrims, I mean, any day you're playing Thieves and FaZe is going to be an important day. Skyz was talking about the state of OpTic. I don't know how much they've practiced their search and destroy for now. On paper, their search should be excellent, frankly, with Skyz. I mean, you know, Skyz, Huke, Shotzzy, Dashy should be a great search team. they should be better, I would say, than with Kenny and Pred. No doubt about that in my mind. So that should be a positive on paper. He says their control's really good too, and this was what he mentioned, that, you know, their hardpoint is okay, but it's actually their control and their search, which is, you know, which he's expecting to be the difference maker for them. So if their hardpoint can get better, if they can, you know, go even 55-60% of hardpoints against even the, you know, some of the really good teams, then they're in an excellent position to make a serious run for the rest of the season. They first played Thieves, and the Thieves series was pretty interesting. They won the first map. After that, Thieves, you know, had a couple of great maps. I mean, this, for example, I watched this from Dashy's POV. This is HyDra getting 1, hopping up top getting 2, dolphin diving off the top rope and slamming Dashy in midair. I mean, this kid is absurd, and I don't know how good Thieves are going to be this stage. I think they're going to be really good. That's just my feeling. It can go one of two ways, whether obviously they collapse and burn after a difficult end to the major, or whether they you know, use it as fuel to the fire and motivation to become even better, because there's no doubt how talented these guys could be. And when I saw drop 42, I thought, oh, maybe 42 eliminations, that's not bad. But no, it actually was 42 kills. 42 in 20 HyDra went. I mean, Shotzzy had 18, Skyz had 19 on the other side. So sometimes that just happens and HyDra takes over, which, you know, it's what he does. But over the 5 hardpoints they played, it was 3-2 to the Los Angeles Thieves. OpTic won a couple in there. They did not play the controls. I think they would have done, but FaZe were ready to go. I think the scrim timings kind of overlapped to the extent that, okay, they didn't want to keep FaZe waiting, so they thought, all right, let's just chalk up the controls, or play FaZe in the controls. But, you know, maybe Scrappy wasn't so happy about it, right? He had to hop on Rocket League a little bit earlier than he would have otherwise liked. But these are the numbers. So they never played the controls in the end. They played 1 round of the vault and then it was chalked up, so not really going to be counting that one. But, you know, the Hassie, LA Thieves won it 250-151. OpTic won the vault. They won the red cards. But the maps they lost were pretty emphatic. 250-121, 250-141 on the Skyline and Protocol respectively. So, you know, there's talk about the servers, Radiation put it together, and good work, I think, from both teams. It's always a scrim set that you're going to learn a fair bit from. So Thieves are obviously really damn good. But it was the FaZe series that definitely turned some heads, because they turned the streams on against FaZe as well, and given that Thieves, it had been 2-3, I think many were probably expecting them to play FaZe, you know, win a couple of maps. But it's still early days with this team. There's still been questions about how good this team is really going to be in this game. Shotzzy's playstyle has been under question for sure as well. Not even his playstyle, more so just like, he's not really delivered, has he, on this game so far, apart from the start of the game. Ever since Shotzzy went villain mode, it's not really worked out for him. But, I mean, even this, Scump's tweeted out highlight clips of scrims, so, like, it is what it is. It's practice. But still, I think we can take some things away from this. I mean, here's Huke. Like, how often do you see players like this? It's the type of play that I'm not saying you can't get away with on LAN, but it is just a very Huke play. And that's perfectly fine. That's what he does. That's what he brings to the table. He's on an 8 spree here against FaZe, absolutely destroying him on the Hacienda. And they played 5 hardpoints. They won 4 of the hardpoints, and most of them were actually relatively comfortable. The one that they lost was like a 250-245 bang-out game. Every other game, you know, they won with a pretty impressive performance here. Dashy at this final map was, you know, 32 in 20, I think it was on the protocol here. Let me just check whether that's fully true. Yeah, he had a minute and a half in the hill as well. Skyz and Shotzzy with plenty of hill time too on the OpTic side. I just feel like the reason why Huke keeps getting brought back is that whenever OpTic are in a tricky position, even though Huke might not be like the best player in terms of fundamentals, like it's going to be difficult for many people to forget about what happened on, what was it, Zarqua Hydroelectric or whatever that map was called, back at MW2 where he didn't pick up the mid-cut, Kismet runs through, you guys know the rest on that one. But, you know, it's difficult for people to overlook moments like that, but equally, when Shotzzy knows that he needs a player on his team who he can, you know, trust, rely on, Huke's always going to be the guy, because they just know how each other play. They always, you know, play well together, play off each other well, and it just feels like they're a great duo. Certainly in a game like this. I mean, we said it even at the start of the year when Huke was first picked up, that on paper this change makes a lot of sense. Of course, in due time, after the difficult result in Madrid, it didn't really work out. But, I mean, Shotzy's just running circles around these guys, and Huke's getting the kills as well. This, of course, was in the control. So I wanted to share a couple of clips here from the scrim set, and also from Scump kind of reacting to the, you know, pleasant surprise of OpTic pretty much slamming FaZe in these scrims.
One pumped piece. Did we just win 4-1 hard
4-1 against FaZe. Let's go. Come on.
Okay, gentlemen. 4-1 HPs. The only map we lost was a vault, and it was by 5 points. Holy shit. That was the best scrim set that we have had.
Wow.
And it's not even close.
That was...
Just
gorgeous.
clap it up. 7-1.
That was just gorgeous, man.
The only hard point they lose was the first map, and they lost by 5.
That's good practice.
That was a great set.
So the Hacienda OpTic won 250-163. They lost the Vault in a bang-out 250-245. The Skyline they won, of course, the map that they lost to Thieves. They won the Protocol pretty impressively by 80-odd points. They lost that to Thieves 2 previously. And then the Red Cards, they won that as well. So I'm sure OpTic are learning a lot about what maps they like, what maps they don't like so much. But right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to dislike all that much, to be honest. They then played the 3 controls. And this, to me, was the far more telling part of the series, really, because, you know, okay, the hard points, if you consider the Thieves ones and the FaZe ones, they pretty much split them across those 2 teams. But the control is very telling, because FaZe are not a weak control team by any means. And it's been OpTic's, I wouldn't say their biggest struggle, I mean, they've been struggling everywhere, but their control has not been good. Never really liked watching them play control, right? I always felt like their decision making was questionable, but their defense during the course of these maps was super strong. And FaZe, like, FaZe are never going to get like 3-0 in control. It just doesn't really happen. But for OpTic to win a game 5 or round 5 decider on the Vault, a round 5 decider on the Protocol, and then win the Hassi 3-1, you know, their defense was super strong. And to go from winning 4-1 in the hard points to then 3-0ing FaZe in the controls over all of the maps, even on map, you know, like Protocol that OpTic don't really play, that was impressive. And yeah, it's practice, but I think it was impressive. So, what's the reaction to this? What can we take away from it? Where do OpTic go from here, right? Because, you know, the Are We Back-ometer is pointed towards we are so back right now for the Green Wall. Obviously, the fans are going to be very excited about at least the potential of this team, whether they can execute that even when the matches start back up on Friday, whether they can execute that when it comes to the CDL actually returning to LAN when we go to Major 3 in Florida. Those are different questions. But nonetheless, the Scrim champions of the day go to OpTic Texas. Now, this is a incredibly cursed AI image, but, I mean, have a look at this. Everything is just right, but it's so wrong at the same time. Like, Shotzzy doesn't really look like this, but he's obviously doing that finger post thing. Even the OpTic logo, of course, is wrong. Skyz genuinely looks hilarious. And I don't even know how to comment on the other ones, but it's like, there's like a bit of uncanny valley stuff going on here, but yeah, I thought this is pretty funny. So, OpTic take, you know, the Scrim champions of the day. GG's to FaZe, and with Scump's reaction being pretty positive, I think there's no doubt that he feels like they're playing far superior COD. But FaZe are still FaZe, and when they come to LAN, it's going to be a different story. I know that there's people saying, oh, maybe FaZe weren't trying and all this. Like, I think that the scrims, they really do try, because I don't know if they were doing it every scrim, but, you know, usually, especially with Drazah likes to put a bit of money on the line for scrims, because then it keeps the other teams actually trying. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of bread on the line here that OpTic took home, which it's not like FaZe were just going to roll over and die so that OpTic looked good on stream, so that that FaZe can beat them in the real game because they get complacent. That seems pretty doubtful to me, but today they will scrim Toronto and Gentlemates. Of course, the new Gentlemates team, they probably have to confirm it, right, before they stream that one, you'd imagine, right? Because it's FeLo and Johnny on the team. They've not confirmed that officially yet. And then Toronto, again, is going to be kind of interesting just to see, because OpTic played Toronto the other day, and I think it was 5-3 to Toronto. We'll see if OpTic, after a couple more days of scrims, feel like they've improved against that team, or whether Ultra continue to be a difficult team for them to beat. But very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.